this tireless explorer of the North managed to carry out 4 daring expeditions only in a couple of years. God only knows, if his fortune had been more favorable to him, we would possibly have some more geographical points named after Henry Hudson on our maps. History has not saved the precise place and date of his birth. Moreover, only the last 4 years of his life have been chronicled in his biography. We can be sure only about the fact that Henry Hudson was an Englishman, and by his age of 50, he had a reputation of an experienced navigator. But he never owned his own ship and had no capital. Having no money for the expedition, Hudson approached the Bristol Trading Union, the Muscovy Company, trading with Russia, China, and Japan. Hudson assured the merchants that he would find a short sea passage from England to China through the northern seas. In 1607, the ship bearing a promising name, the Hopewell, left England. Hudson reached the eastern coasts of Greenland in a month's time. Those places are now called Hudson Land. Having found no way to the north, the seafarer went to Spitzbergen, but huge 3-meter thick icebergs stood on his way. The old ship was literally crumbling up. Hudson had to return home. The sailors were brave enough to follow his way and reach those northern latitudes only a century and a half later. However, the first voyage of Hudson was not in vain. The crew found there were many whales, seals, and walruses. That was how Hudson introduced the most profitable hunting in Arctic waters. Just 3 years later, more than 200 whale boats went fishing there every season. There were even a unique whale war. England struggled against Holland for the preferential rights for that hunt. In 1608, Hudson resumed his expedition in the northern seas, but the merchants begrudged the ship's equipment. The captain had to return again without much success. After 2 unfortunate attempts, Englishmen lost their interest in the search for seaways to the eastern countries. Yet Hudson had no intention to abandon the chase of his dream. He passed to the Hollands Trading Company, and on April 1609, sailed from Amsterdam. Soon, Hudson was near new land, but his sailors who had been used to the East Indian warm seas claimed they could not stand that awful cold. So Hudson chose the western route instead of the eastern route to China. The maps of those times pointed that the bay which passed from the Atlantic to China was situated in latitude 40 degrees. Of course, Hudson could not find the non-existing passage to China near the American coast, but he investigated the river on the banks of which Hollanders would build a city 15 years later. In 1664, Englishmen would name that city New York, and descendants would name the river after the traveler Hudson. A year later, the English Trade Company equipped a small ship called Discovery for exploring the Northwest Passage. Henry Hudson, who was already about 60, was appointed its captain. Hudson was so sure of success that he even took his 14-year-old son to the far sea voyage. In June 1610, between the Isles of Baffin Island and Labrador, Hudson discovered a wide bay that subsequently was named after him. For an entire month, the captain directed his ship through stormy, icy corridor until he entered the bay as huge as a sea. For several weeks, Hudson tried to find the passage to the ocean, but he was unlucky again. His sailors grumbled. They did not wish to stand the troubles of the ice voyage. Perhaps the experienced navigator, Henry Hudson, was not tough enough to maintain discipline on the ship. And though Hudson had unshipped the main troublemaker, his first assistant, Robert Jouet, the crew was not cooperative. The worst time for the captain was when the ship was stuck in the ice trap. The wintering prolonged for 7 months. The discontent of the crew was terminal. 3 days after the ship had gone out of the ice, there was a rebel outburst on board. The rebellions left Henry Hudson, together with his son and 7 faithful sailors, in the boat among ice with no weapons and food. Two months later, Discovery returned to England. The rescue expedition did not find any trace of the boat. Henry Hudson and his comrades were considered to be missing. Although there is a little hope that sailors managed to reach the coast and settled at Eskimo people. 300 years later, not far from Hudson Bay, the unusual Eskimo white-skinned tribe was found. The white-skinned Eskimos were unlike any other Aborigines of Canada and Alaska. Perhaps they were the grandsons of the legendary explorer Henry Hudson, whose name is immortalized on the map of Northern America.